You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 136 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts, and I'm not wearing pants. With me is journalist, writer, genius, Jessica Szilagyi.
If you hadn't called me a genius, I might have lobbied to have Eric just silence your entire audio for this show. If you're going to you're going to deter half our listeners just by telling them you don't have pants on.
Well, aren't you glad we're not in the same room?
I am.
I don't wear pants at home. That's what am I, an animal?
Poor Connie.
And that is your go-to. And if she actually listened, she would say, I know. We want to mention Big Daddy Unlimited. They are the sponsor for our show. They are your direct source for everything that goes bang and everything that makes go bang quiet. They have ammo, firearms, accessories, silencers, short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles. If you're into the shooting sports, then you should certainly check out Big Daddy. You can join for just $1 for the first month and see if it works for you. It's $1. If you do, please use our link on our webpage, on the All on Georgia pages. Any of the stories that you read from Jessica, at the bottom of it, you'll have a banner ad for Big Daddy, and that will get us the credit. And selfishly, we want the credit.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, we are capitalist pigs here. Georgians are one step closer to being able to order home deliveries of beer, wine, and distilled spirits.
It sounds so. Just so people know, this is like by the drink, or a couple of drinks. This isn't like wine delivery or having a case of beer or cases of beer delivered through a shipping company or something. We're talking about like restaurants or hotels or just businesses locally that are putting something in a car and driving into your house, like with your pizza.
Wow. That's got to be an expensive way to get a beer.
Yeah. Well, so the legislature approved this in June, and then obviously Kemp signed it in June, and it was all done in the name of COVID, which is just their simple, in my opinion. It is the legislature's simple skirting of the, why do you guys talk about alcohol every session? Like, because it's unpopular in a lot of districts still. And this gave them the opportunity to say, well, this was a way for businesses to make money in the pandemic, and don't you want businesses to survive?
Well, like anything else government does, this is convoluted and complicated. Local governments can opt out, which you can't raise my taxes on my home and refuse to collect tax income from alcohol. You don't get to do that. I mean, without repercussion. In Paulding County, we still don't have liquor stores in Paulding County. We have them in Hiram and we have them in Dallas, but we don't have them in the county. And one of the more affluent neighborhoods is not in either city. And people go to Cobb County and they buy their liquor there. But there's this lobby. Even on the board I sit on, the Board of Zoning Appeals, we were doing a variance so that, of all stupid things, Jessica, the number of parking spaces for a new Dollar General Market. Yeah, I know. It's to go from 20 to like 18 because of the topography of the lot. And the local church showed up and asked, will you be selling alcohol? Well, no, Dollar General doesn't really sell alcohol. Like, oh, okay, we just don't need that in our community. I'm like, you jackass, there's a Publix across the street. But that is still the mentality that we're dealing with.
It is, and it's such a conundrum between local control and state authority. But I was always under the impression that local control was supposed to be, I mean, they always shout about local control when it's actually about control, not about locals granting more freedom, you know? Like when there's an ability to loosen restrictions and you could argue whether or not this actually does. I mean, when we get to the part about the regulations and the rules that the Department of Revenue put in place, it's kind of hard to argue that there's more freedom in this new legislation, but the local government's just it's local control for a reason, because that's all they want to do is control. And
they pander. Local governments tend to pander more than the state politics. So, you know, when a local election could be swayed by 100 votes, even in our state Senate race came down to 200 votes. But pandering to the churches, and again, I don't understand the church's aversion to alcohol. I mean, Jesus turned water into wine.
They don't want the riffraff.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, we don't want the riffraff. Like, they're just getting it somewhere else. In my definition of riffraff isn't having a cocktail, they're smoking meth.
Well, and it's very much related to the part of town you're in, regardless. You know, I mean, I've not seen an example of when a convenience store I feel like everyone hates Dollar General just because they pop up everywhere, and you'll be in the middle of, like, especially down here, you'll be in the middle of a beautiful farmland where it's just like rolling little hills and green crops, and then a Dollar General. And it's just ugly, but I've never seen that just tank a community because they sell alcohol there.
And I've never seen one tank. You know, for all the moaning and complaining about Dollar Generals popping up, they don't go out of business.
No, they're just ugly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally shop at Dollar General, but people who do, I mean, it's obviously they have a good business model. And I'm more likely to invest in Dollar General than I am to shop there. But that is the ultra privileged asshole guy I am.
Of course.
So there's your first bleep of the week, folks. So getting into the bill itself, the bill expanded the Sunday brunch bill to begin at 11 a.m. on Sundays for liquor stores and off-premise consumption locations such as hotels, restaurants, and wineries. You know, I hate that the brunch bill had to be a thing, and I was in a meeting with Howard Maxwell, who was the representative for a while. He was a representative for a long time. He's now retired. But he said, well, I don't know why you need to have alcohol at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And I said, Howard, what about the guy who works third shift, and that's 5 o'clock in the afternoon to him? Or how about this? It's not your business why someone's buying a 12-pack of beer at 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, you just stick to you. Mm-hmm. If you don't particularly want to drink a beer at 9 o'clock in the morning, guess what? Don't.
Well, and this is, everyone's always like, oh, that's such a ridiculous argument or whatever. But what if someone works the night shift?
Well, exactly right. You know, I tend to fall back on the freedom aspect of it, which is it's nobody's business. But yeah, for some people, 9 o'clock in the morning is the same as 5 o'clock in the evening.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. It's absolutely freedom, but the point here is that, like, it's just like daylight savings. We only move our clocks around because the government tells us to, and time is only, like, it's business hours because, like, we've set standards, but it doesn't mean that everyone adheres to that, which is why freedom is the obvious answer.
So I want everybody to take their scorecards out and go ahead and mark Jessica down for day drinking.
Yeah.
Okay, we got anti-cop. Check that off. Day drinking, pro-prostitute, pro-porn. What else? What else can we do to hurt your career?
Well, I'm pro-stripper as well.
Oh, how could I forget about?
I don't know. That's how I got my start. In writing.
In writing.
Yeah.
Like, damn, Jessica, you didn't tell me that.
No. But, okay, so I obviously knew that this bill went through the legislature because I was working for a few of our lawmakers, and I gave it a green because I was like, yes, this is a good idea. And then I saw an article on Online Athens, which it has nothing to do with them being like a news outlet that bothers me, but this was the worst article that I've ever seen because it was by their Capitol Beat correspondents, and it literally said nothing about. It just said that the Department of Revenue has put these rules in place for people who want to sell and deliver alcohol by the drink to homes and other places. And they didn't link to the Department of Revenue's website. They didn't say any of the things. So, of course, I went searching, and that's how it ended up on the podcast, because these things, we have to pass it to find out what's in it. So you're like, yeah, this is more freedom. This is a great idea. And then the last line says, the legislature gives the authority to the Department of Revenue to come up with the rules and regulations and publish and enforce them as necessary. And so they pass it. The governor signs it into law. And then the Department of Revenue is like, hey, here's 40 rules and regulations, and they all are terrible, and it's a lot of rules and regulations, and we're going to enforce them with high fines and, Fourth Amendment violations that you surrender, and cheers. So literally, pun intended. But so we're talking about it because I haven't seen anyone actually dive into it. The only news I've seen about it is that they publish the rules, and we're one step closer. But I think it's really important to know what the rules are, because the rules are absolutely awful.
Yeah, only retail package stores can sell distilled spirits for delivery. All deliveries must be completed on the same day of the sale and same day the alcoholic beverages leave the licensed premises of the retailer.
Obviously. I mean, I don't want a frozen margarita to be melted.
That's a hard line for you, huh?
Yeah. I don't even want a little bit of liquid at the top. That thing better be iced when you show up.
Well, there should be a little liquid on the top if you're going to get a Texas margarita and has a Grand Marnier melter on top. Mm-hmm. Require delivery drivers to be free of criminal background issues, and they must complete and this is a quote, stupid ass curriculum to get a certificate. It must be renewed every 2 years.
I pulled that straight from the Department of Revenue website. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, if it's not hard enough to find delivery drivers, now you have to find one who's never been in jail.
Exactly. Well, for anything, I mean, I don't want some person who's, had been locked up for carjackings and armed robberies to be delivering my margaritas, but I don't really care if,
Well, you obviously don't want someone who's been in jail 3 times for supplying alcohol to minors. But yeah. the idea that someone 5 years ago got a possession charge for pot can't work as a delivery driver now?
Well, and then, of course, you want them to have a certificate that is on a curriculum based on what the government thinks is in the best interest, and then that they pay to take the course, they pay to get the certification, and they have to renew it every 2 years. Like, instead of having, the college kid work in a college town or a grad student or somebody because you have to be 21, instead of having that person just do it seasonally, it's not worth it unless they get certified on their own, but it's not worth it for a company to pay for them because of the turnover. I mean, it's just, they're going to look for someone who's looking for a long-term delivery job.
Yeah, the turnover is the key here. Is the thing that makes Uber Eats so successful is they're not full-time employees, and they come and go as they wish. So the idea that you're going to make a career out of being a delivery, not demeaning folks who deliver, but typically those people are either transient, which is, they're taking a job to make ends meet in the short term, but ultimately their career path doesn't end with delivering vodka. Or
it's a second job, or
amen. Yeah.
And there's the companies like DoorDash and stuff, they can still do it, because let's say that, Longhorn wants to they contract with them. They just have to have a contract in place and all the parties just have to adhere to the same standards as if they were an actual employee. And they just have to keep the contract on the books and have proof of that. So you can still have the third party, but you're driving up the cost across the board, whether it's in-house or third party.
Well, here we go. Cannot be delivered to schools. Wow. Line on that one. Prisons, other retailers, or lockage storage facilities.
Yeah. I love that they had to write that out.
People live at those locker storage facilities, and I'm not talking about people living in the boxes. I'm talking about the couple that is the
on-site manager.
Yeah, they will live in an apartment on site. I understand this is a small demographic of people that live there, but they really didn't take that into consideration. That the couple that is the on-site managers may want some beer delivered on Sunday when they're watching football, and if you're Falcon fans, you're gonna need something stronger than beer. You don't watch the sports balls.
Yeah, but I watch the Facebook and I watch everyone have a meltdown, and it's hilarious.
The most 2020 thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Must sign for acceptance of delivery of drink. It cannot be noticeably intoxicated.
What's the point of having alcohol delivered if I can't be drunk when I want my margaritas delivered?
If I'm sober, I can drive my own ass to the liquor store.
Yes. I'm not paying double for the cost and for a delivery fee and everything else. I mean, it's just like when they boot your car in a parking lot overnight, and when you got a taxi or an Uber to take you home, like, there's no reward for doing the responsible thing. There's not even no punishment it's just across the board. The system is working against people who want to have fun and be responsible.
And look here. If you're throwing a party at your house, the person going to the door may be drunk. But the fact is, they didn't go find the most sober person at the party to go make a liquor run. They're getting it delivered, which is the responsible thing to do. And yes, I have been to parties where we try to find the least drunk person, and that's the guy going to make the beer run. I mean, it's been a while.
And I love that you have to show your ID and sign for it when this was done in the name of COVID, because both of those things require touching.
All right, here we go. Businesses that deliver alcohol must keep a list for 3 years.
Do you have to keep a list of who you serve alcohol to at a restaurant? Do they scan our licenses back there?
Don't give them any damn ideas.
Yeah.
But must maintain a list. My God. Now, the onerous is now on the liquor store to maintain a list of who they deliver to. Department of Revenue enforcement officers can inspect business records and vehicles used to deliver alcohol.
Hell no.
So I've got a $10 an hour delivery driver that has to now consent to the Department of Revenue going through his vehicle because it's being used to deliver alcohol.
For no reason.
Yeah, what damn difference does it make? Does it matter if my Tito's gets to me in a Pinto or in a Bugatti Veyron? No, I don't care. I'm just paying for the bottle of Tito's.
Well, and what's interesting and hilarious to me also is that Like, that's subject to search and everything, but we don't have them search, thank God, or, make Uber and Lyft drivers forfeit their Fourth Amendment rights. So basically, they're saying, the state is saying that it values alcohol more than the regular life.
Right. Violating fines for any and all parties, $500 for each violation, or whatever the local government wants.
So $500 at the state level, and then if the local government has opted in, they can tack on another fee. Because nothing says government like getting it stuck to you twice.
Good God, man. I don't know. But here's the best transition of the day, and I'm reading it because someone wrote it for me. Whether you're drunk or not, maybe you'll enjoy this headline, a favorite of the week. Trump says elderly to get $200 for drugs. You were on your game this week, Jess.
Well, every now and then, you got to put forth a little effort.
Every now and then, this show isn't an afterthought in your week.
Yeah, I'm not like furiously 30 minutes before the episode recording, Googling things that are interesting to talk about that aren't obviously like, we get busted a lot because we don't disagree. But I can't help that we're so right all the time. I mean,
ideologically right.
Well, like I can't think of a time I've been wrong.
I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, like these things, you see them on there, and yes, I'm sure I could find somebody to come on the show and tell me why they need $200 for elderly for cards for the elderly on Medicare. I believe you. I believe you that is a problem. I know it's a problem. We all know somebody or are familiar with somebody who has, whether it's because their little property taxes go up or because anything goes, their electric bill or whatever, that they have to figure out on a fixed income how they're going to pay for something. We all know people like that. I could have someone come on the show and tell us that. I know that. You know that. The problem is that this is going to cost $6.6 billion, and it's not the role of the government in this. And 2 months before an election either. Come on.
Let that number sink in, too. $6.6 billion. I mean, that's a huge number. I mean, just even when you think about how much a million is.
What's 33 million beneficiaries? And there's the argument of, well, we paid into Medicare and blah, 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 blah. Yes, you did. You absolutely did. You paid in for the coverage and the care. And I don't, when we have a budget, this money's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from the, what is it called? There's a program, but it's a test program. And then the argument by the White House is that because they can't cover all of it because they didn't budget for this because it's coming in September, but the cost will be offset by future savings generated from new price cuts Trump has ordered for drugs bought by Medicare. So you're assuming that another order that the government has manipulated in regard to Medicare is going to show enough of a slash that you can justify spending this. And when everyone knows that healthcare costs are out of control and drug costs are supposed to be going down, you're going to give them a stipend to pay for the drugs that are now going to be cheaper, and you're not going to save any money at all?
Yeah, and to pretend this is not vote buying.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It is no mistake this is dropping September before an election. And here is when I talk about the Republican Party leaving me, not me leaving the Republican Party, that's moving left. That's government handouts. If I wrote this plan down and put the name Obama on top of it instead of Trump, people would lose their ever-loving minds that this is overreach, that this is not the role of government, that people need to be responsible with their own money. But if you put an R after the guy's name, all of a sudden, all these Republicans go, well, obviously this is a good thing. Obviously, we're supposed to take care of our seniors. What the hell's wrong with anybody who would oppose this? This goes back to my statement that Trump doesn't have supporters. He has fans. And fan is short for fanatic.
And this came out, he rolled this out, I think, on Thursday of last week. And, spoiler, we're recording on Friday. But it was pretty well publicized. I mean, everywhere I looked last night, I saw articles about it. But I didn't really see any Republicans calling it out.
Right. And that's the thing, is this team politics is poison in our society. Instead of looking at the principle, and look, you can vote for Trump and disagree with some of the things he does.
Amen.
You can say, between the choices we have, I'm going to vote for Trump. However, I disagree with this.
Maybe our elected officials would do better if people said that they don't like a policy position instead of having a blind allegiance. And that's not just Trump. It's everyone right now, because people feel like they cannot speak out against the person they're supporting because the attacks will be bad on the other side. Well, you know what? If it's a bad idea, they deserve those attacks. That's when they should get attacks. And the reason the other side isn't attacking him on this really is because they support it.
I cannot remember a Republican in recent history that succeeded by moving left. It doesn't matter what you give the other side; they're still going to criticize you. So, by compromising your values, what you claim are your core values of small government and individual responsibility, by sacrificing what is at the core of the Republican platform, as stated, again, they left me. They went to the left. Dave didn't move right. By violating those very principles, it doesn't make you more electable. You get people like me going, well, then what's the difference? That puts me into the Matt Lowe category of I'm just not going to participate. I'll vote in my local elections and I'm totally. If a Republican's going to act like a Democrat, what's the damn difference? Mm-hmm. We have parties because parties were supposed to represent our principles. So the idea was.
Is that why? I thought it was so that we could rule by majority and oppress the individual. But anyway, go ahead.
You hide your stances so well.
You should see my poker face.
Poker face? But if you're just going to... If your values are so flexible to you, I don't get it. My values aren't flexible. The things I believe, and I believe because of my principles. So on the same hand that someone says, well, what about this individual who can't afford drugs or anything else? It doesn't change my principle. Because my principles are closely held. Obviously, the Republican Party on this doesn't have any damn principle. They have nothing to stand behind. It is what is politically expedient. We want Donald Trump to be reelected. We're okay with him buying votes. And that to me is absolutely just disgusting. And it's not. I'm not even disgusted with Trump himself. I'm disgusted with his fans who will bend themselves around in some sort of intellectual yoga to find a way to justify this, that anybody else, if you looked at it by itself, would say, oh, that's a horrible idea. Oh, Trump's doing it. Oh, okay, it's a good idea.
No, you're right. I mean, we totally expect elected officials to pander and to start, especially around this time, to start throwing all of the marbles down the bowling alley to try to hit a pin and knock it over and get a vote. That is what we expect. I expect people who cast their votes to stick to their principles and want their elected officials to be accountable to those things and to be, just call it out. Just say it's wrong.
But it's why I was thrown out of the Paulding County Republican Party, because I criticized Trump. I criticized him on the slide fire ban, which I still feel is absolutely unconstitutional. You know, that they took a product which had a letter from the ATF saying it was legal and then just changed their mind, going, you know what, we changed our mind. Now you're a felon. Go and turn it in, or cut it with a bandsaw. But this is the same sort of mental gymnastics that goes on, and people who are willing to sacrifice their values. And this even bleeds into the conversation you had on Facebook and an article you put out about team politics and these people running for office, and their only platform is, I'm more Trump than the other guy. Oh,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because Kelly Stupid Loeffler put out a new TV commercial where she's talking about how the conversation is, did you know that Kelly Loeffler votes 100% with Trump? Cool. So you don't have a brain for yourself. You can't think for yourself. You just align with, like, that's not a talking point. What?
She is blonde, so.
Whatever, man.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm seeing this on every level. I'm seeing this at the state Senate race where I'm at in 31. Well, I've been to the White House 3 times. Well, I was on. I was one of the electors that voted for Trump, and it's like I don't give a damn. What is your platform? What is your core value when it comes to governance? And if you can't tell me that, I don't want to care. Trump, at best, is going to be president another 4 years. Your values and laws you pass go on forever. So I don't want to hear, especially on the state and local level, how close you are to Trump. I don't give a damn. I want to hear what freedoms are you going to bring me? And when you ask most politicians that, they can't answer it. They come up with talk about laws like we just discussed on the alcohol delivery, which has more restriction and more government. You know, they won't give with a single hand. It always comes two-handed. They always have something freedom, like we're looking at, say, oh, wow, this sounds like a really good idea. You can have alcohol delivered to the house. And then the other hand reaches in and goes, yeah, but we're gonna tax the snot out of you, and we're gonna make sure that the delivery driver's car can be inspected any day of the week. And again, if you put that in a vacuum, like would you submit your vehicle to being inspected by the government at any time? You'd say, of course not.
No, and if someone you didn't like put the idea in place, you wouldn't like it.
Right, and this goes into a larger discussion that I can disagree with my lawmakers and still like them personally. And we can disagree on several things and agree on several things, and ultimately we're still friends. We're still okay with each other. It's fine. But this hyperbolic political environment we're in is just disgusting. No one has any values, or they don't know what they are. But getting back to the subject at hand, just a blanket payout. The government's job is not to reduce drug prices. I don't care. Drugs are expensive because they keep you alive.
Well, and the argument is that there's this negotiation thing that happens with Medicare and the prices that they pay because they're covering them. And I understand all that. But don't tell me that you're going to save money because you're going to drive you've negotiated a lower, let's just say it's all negotiation, there's no order. You've agreed to a lower price and it's going to save money. So don't tell me, turn around and say that it's great news that you're going to spend money instead. Like, that's not how this works. We're trillions and trillions in debt.
Well, here's the thing about drugs. We have innovation because people can make money. If you develop 100 drugs, only one comes to market. There are a lot of things that just don't work. And there's so much time and money involved in developing new medications. One of the blood pressure medicines I take, because I'm fat and I'm American and I like bad food, is $300 a month, whatever it is. And Kroger, who we use for the pharmacy, sends me a text every time I get it filled with, did you know this drug is $300? Do you want me to fill it? I'm like, no, I guess I'll just die. Yes, fill it. You know, and not to make a broad generalization here, but I guess I will. People find money in their budget for alcohol, for cigarettes, for other things that I don't. It's not that I don't feel bad. I empathize with people who are struggling to pay their medications. But the fact that there are medications available are a result of a capitalist system. Drug companies are not altruistic. They're there to make money. And they develop new drugs to make money. And those drugs are expensive because they have to cover their costs and make money.
And pay their way through the government approval process.
Absolutely. But you have to realize that these drug companies have overhead. It's not them being evil and charging me $300 a month for one of my medications. It's that particular pill was expensive to develop, and the time that they have is limited before a generic can be introduced. That medication, their time is limited before they have.
It's also their product. They made it. They made a product that does something that other people cannot do.
Right. And because of that, my blood pressure is 115/75.
Well, that's good. Good for you.
Yeah. Poor Connie. She's stuck with me for a while longer. But in times past, I would have had a stroke at 50 or 60. Those medications keep me alive. And I see a value in that. So when I get that text from them, I have to call them back and say, yes, fill it. They're like, well, are you aware how much it costs? I'm like, I guess I'll just die.
Right.
But you know, and again, I know that I'm speaking from a point of privilege, but we don't have kids. We do fine and all that stuff. And I'm sure it is a struggle for some folks. But we don't, as a society, say that the government should provide for all these people. If you want to start a nonprofit organization to pay for drugs for those who can't afford it, hey, tell me where I should send a check. That sounds like a wonderful thing to do for people as a private organization. But to tell me that my taxes have to go to it, go screw yourself. Mm-hmm. That will be the next post on Facebook, won't it?
Yep. I'm writing a note down now.
Dave says, seniors, go screw yourselves.
Yep. You can sit next to the teachers, Dave says.
Yeah, Dave pisses off seniors and teachers. Who will he offend next week? This is a good time to say these are our opinions, and not necessarily those of All on Georgia, or any All on Georgia reporter not offering commentary on the show. It certainly does not represent the opinions of our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. They are concerned with guns, not what I say about Medicare. Should releasing personal information about a judge be a crime? Jessica?
No. Nope. Next.
What's the background on that?
So, of course, we're talking about who Trump is going to nominate. And and all of these things have started coming out about spouses and where the spouses work and what churches they go to, where they hang out. Like, everything is being put out there. And some of the nominees and supporters of the nominees are already talking about how personal information should not be released, and that it should even go to the extent of being a crime. Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my entire, well, today at least. But, it's not a crime. If the information is publicly available, if people know, if it's on a Google search, or, you have ties to the White House and someone has previously said something, or like, there's so many, you want to be a Supreme Court justice. People know who you are. They know things about you, and the media is going to go find those things out about you. It's called vetting. And yeah, it might have a lot more stuff than you feel comfortable or would prefer is out there. But that's just the reality of it. And if you don't want to be subject to it, don't try to become a justice.
I'm going to throw my my hat into the ring for Supreme Court justice, because I'm as qualified as anybody else. I can read the Constitution. Mm-hmm. I mean, why not? But I agree what happened to Kavanaugh was a travesty.
But that was lies.
It was
unfounded lies.
And you know what? The person who I disagree with the most was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she agreed that what happened to Kavanaugh was a travesty. Mm-hmm. Of course, the person who's going to be the biggest fan of new appointee is Kavanaugh, because he'll no longer be the junior justice.
Yeah.
But it's... Okay, we're over the 2 minutes for that segment, because your commentary, no, next segment. But, yeah, all that is exposed. I did see one of the people that are being bantered about. Now, keep in mind, we'll know who the nominee is when this show drops. But one of them has 7 kids. And I just was...
Matt?
That's what I was wondering. Was she married to Matt Lowe? All that stuff is interesting in a sidebar. But all I care about as Supreme Court justice is, can you read the Constitution and apply it? I don't care how many kids you have. I don't care what church you go to.
Yeah.
I don't care if you
live the media
snakes on Sundays. It doesn't matter to me. What are your views on the Constitution and framers' intent? That's all I care about.
I agree. That's the media being the stupid media that they've become. But it doesn't mean it should be illegal just because you don't want it out there.
Right. Saying something's wrong and something should be illegal are two different things.
Yeah.
So now we get to Pasco's sheriff created a futuristic program to stop crime before it happens. Okay, Vanilla Sky, hit us. Okay, don't.
I'm on you.
So the sheriff wasn't created, but is using a computer program based on previous offenses as to whether or not someone be likely to commit to reoffend, which in a vacuum is not a bad thing. Just to examine the habits of people and the trend to reoffend. However, these people, using their words, are being harassed by law enforcement, that they are getting periodic check-ins from law enforcement to see how they're doing and if they're going to reoffend.
I mean, so if it's going to be used at all, it belongs in a magistrate court, not a sheriff's office.
Yeah, not. And look, I think it's a very interesting study.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important thing to take into consideration when sentencing individuals. their proclivity to reoffend. But should the enforcement branch be sending deputies to people's homes and knocking on doors going, where is so-and-so? What's he doing?
Well, and there's a consent opt-in component here that's actually not here. You know, like if you want to be a part of a study, be a part of a study. This is not what this is.
And what's happening is all hours of the night, deputies are showing up. Now, to keep in mind, there are some people who are very happy about what's going on. Even some parents of kids who are habitual offenders saying, I'm glad that he's being held accountable. But once these folks are off probation, once they are considered back in society, these folks are losing jobs. Deputies are showing up at their workplace and asking questions.
Well, and it doesn't really put the law enforcement in a good community bridge building position. Like, you're unnecessarily... We talk about unnecessary interactions all the time, right? Like, does the deputy need to be there? Do they need to start that interaction? Do they need to have that adversarial role?
Right. It's the difference between being a servant of the people versus being an enforcer. And these deputies are showing up and harassing people to the point where they're leaving the county, which I guess ultimately is their goal.
Which is unfortunate. I mean...
That the idea that, one, juvenile records are sealed, but juvenile records are absolutely being used in this. They're going after juveniles. They're going after 16, 17-year-old kids. They're going after people who have already done their time, are already off parole, off probation. They've done their time, and they're trying to get their life back in order. And then they get a job bagging groceries, and deputies show up at their work. Oh, we just want to make sure you're here.
I don't know if the person just didn't care, who came up with this initially just didn't care what the optics were, if they just didn't look down the path just a little bit, but I don't know.
I will say it's probably a winning strategy for getting reelected. The vast majority of voters are not criminals.
No.
So the idea of them going after doesn't bother them a bit. If crime goes down, they don't care. Again,
is it ethical?
This goes back to the theme of what are your principles. If you're a principled person, you find this abhorrent. If all you care about is, well, they're getting out of my community, going somewhere else. Well, I guess you found your guy. It's Pasco County Sheriff. And this goes on for years. This isn't just after they're released. This is beyond their parole officer. This is way beyond that. Some of this is 5 years of deputies stopping into people's homes, embarrassing them in front of their neighbors with deputies showing up asking, where's John? Where is he? What's he doing? Well, it's not really any of your business. And one of the people in the story is 15 years old. 15, and he's marked by the government as a person likely to reoffend, and he's going to be followed, have deputies stopping by his home constantly. At 15, we generally agree that a 15-year-old has a chance to grow up, learn from his mistakes, move on with life, become an adult, become a productive member of society, which is increasingly difficult when that society hounds you. So, Jessica, you want to get to your closing thought?
I suppose I had something else set aside for my closing thought initially. But I actually have a positive thing that I wanted to report, which is, and we talked about it on the show a little over a year ago now. There was a story that I wrote about a young man that I referred to as Jacob. He was, at the time of the incident, he was 16. He's autistic, has all kinds of medical and mental issues, and has been deemed incompetent by the courts and school systems and all these things. And he was on a school bus in Evans County, and there was an incident where he was scratching his jock itch, and then a report by another student to the school bus driver. Long story short, he was charged with, I believe, child molestation, and was in the system and having to go to court and all these things. And the story just broke my heart, because he was competent enough to, and I use the word lightly, but competent enough to understand that he was in trouble with the police, and to be afraid anytime he saw the police, and to be terrified in a courtroom, but not competent enough to understand that it wasn't the right thing to do to, stick his hand in his pants and scratch and all these things on a school bus when there's other kids around and things like that. But it was not child molestation. But if you read the code section, blah, blah, blah. We'll find the episode for you, and you can go back and listen if you want. And the article will be linked on our Facebook page. But anyway, when I wrote the story, it got a lot of publicity, and I was able to connect the family with State Representative Scott Holcomb, who does a lot of pro bono work he's a lawyer, but he just does a lot of pro bono work all over the state. And they took on the case. And this past week, it was actually dismissed after over a year of court hearings and DJJ meetings and counseling and mental evaluations and all these things. They dismissed the charges entirely, and complimented the mother on all the things she does to try to provide resources for her son on every level. And it was just like, I was the first person that the mom called to tell, and it just made my entire week and made me grateful for all the other nonsense I had to put up with in this job, to be able to just even hear that. Like, it's one of the best things that's ever happened with regard to a story that I wrote about. So just a positive thing, which is a little bit longer than a closing thought should be, but oh well.
That is uncharacteristically sweet of you.
I know.
Well, we'll expect you to get back next week and be angry.
Yes.
My closing thought is, thank God for the Braves. The Falcons suck so bad. And of course, we're recording this before they play on Sunday. So after this drops, we'll find out which debacle they did. But thank God for the Braves. They are once again heading to the playoffs. They are the Eastern Division champs, third year in a row. And I am a sports ball person, and I'm happy to have some good sports out of Atlanta, because we are just used to losing. So for Jessica Szilagyi, Eric Cumby, our editor, a big thanks to Big Daddy Unlimited, for our sponsor. I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.